Coomber Radio, episode 168. Me and Rachel Guy are back in the house, and we promise we're going to answer some of your questions today. We've just been having a little bit of reminiscence banter offline, because we've currently had, it could happen again. We are experiencing a lot of Skype-based issues, and I think it might be God punishing me because I'm eating a refreshers bar. And how amazing are they? We were reminiscing about old school sweets.
I just couldn't remember what a refresher bar was. And of course I remember now, but I think Whams used to be my favourite ones. They're like pink with like sherbety bits in. And when you pulled them, it was like a long Dracula tongue.
Yeah.
They were the absolute bomb. And the other day, I was in a supermarket the other day, and it's still, you know, very novel for me being back in London, despite the fact I've been here now since, well, I guess on and off since August. What did I see the other day? Munchies. I saw that Munchies the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen those literally for years and years and years.
The red sweets, chocolates.
Yeah, well, they come in a red package, but they're like square chocolate things with caramel and like some crunchy biscuit thing inside.
Never been a fan of caramel and sweets, just doesn't grab me.
Well, they're good. And yesterday, actually, speaking of blast from the past, I came home and I really fancied a cup of tea. Now, I'm not, I like tea, but I'm more of a coffee person. But I came home, really fancied a cup of tea, and I had a digestive biscuit. There were digestive biscuits in the house. I had a digestive biscuit and one rich tea biscuit dipped into my tea, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
That is proper old school.
Really old school. And do you know what? Like, I remembered that when you dip like bickies into tea, you shouldn't actually drink the bottom of your tea because it's kind of like got all the crumbly bits in. Some people think that's the best bit, but to me, like, no. You've always got to just leave like just that little bit of tea at the bottom.
Well, it depends how long you dunk him for.
Yeah, well, I did. Yeah, okay. So I haven't dunked a biscuit in tea for a long time, so I'm a bit of an amateur.
You're a bit out of practice. Have you seen the very famous Peter Kay sketch where he does, where he impersonates like dunking of the tea biscuit, and how people sort of dunk different biscuits for different lengths of time?
Yes, I did do that yesterday. I dunked my rich tea biscuit not quite as long as I dunked my digestive biscuit.
Mate, that sketch is so funny, because then he goes on to talk about the hobnob, and he's just going, dunk me! Dunk me! The hobnob is the marine of the biscuit world.
It is, isn't it? Because they don't break.
I love Peter Kay. His live stuff is amazing.
Yeah, he is good. I haven't seen his stuff for a while, although my favourite comedian is Michael McIntyre.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
He is good. He's good. He's definitely not my favourite. I went and saw... Who did I go and see the other day? I went and saw Mark Watson. I see a lot of comedy. I really, really, really enjoy going to the theatre to watch comedy.
Yeah.
Like comedy is therapy.
It is. Like, if you just... Yeah. God, I haven't been to see a comedian for a long, long time. But I would go see Michael McIntyre.
An hour away from us is a really good theatre that gets all the good guys. It's really good, so we travel up there, which is, perfect. But moving on, enough about our weird worlds. I have an interesting question. Christmas is coming up.
Yeah.
And people always wonder about fitness-related buys for the fitness people in your life. Now, we wrote a blog on the BTN where we did 8 things that you could buy your fitness-y friend. Do you have any fitness people you've bought for? And if so, what did you buy? Was it fitness-related?
Is this a question to me? Because I hate
you're the only one here, mate. It's just you and me.
Okay, so my dad is super into his fitness and his cycling and stuff. So every year, because dads notoriously are the most difficult people to buy for, because generally speaking, if they want something, they go and buy it themselves. So with Dad, I always buy him some form of fitness gear. He's very much a fan of Under Armour. In fact, he should probably be sponsored by them. So I buy him usually some sporty stuff from Under Armour, and always a Terry's chocolate orange, because my family now live in the Middle East. and it's hard to get good chocolate over there. Well, a good Terry's chocolate orange. So I buy that for Dad. My brothers, they're both pretty sporty as well. I've bought them everything from like good lifting straps to lifting shoes to God, I can't remember what I bought them last time. I go through phases of things, but that's it really. It's I'm not very. Oh, one year I bought Rick, my little brother, the Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
Nice.
That was a good purchase.
When you were talking about Terry's chocolate orange, when you said it's hard to get a good Terry's chocolate orange in the Middle East, you made it sound like there are people making Terry's chocolate orange, but they're not Terry's. They're like Dave's chocolate orange. You can't get Terry's, but you can get Dave's chocolate orange.
I did sort of second guess myself when I said that, because the UAE has unbelievable foods, and particularly like really amazing sweets and chocolates and good like desserts and everything. So yeah, so I was in a little bit of conflict when I was saying that, but a good Terry's chocolate orange is in like a good British one. No, we can't get those in the Middle East.
Have you ever tried camel milk chocolate?
No, but I do love camel milk. It's unbelievable. And actually, I'm sure a lot of our Arab friends will know this, but there's a dessert in the UAE that I have, and it's called OMalley, and it's a little bit like bread and butter pudding, but it's made with camel milk. So it's kind of like a custardy, camel milky, sort of bready type thing with raisins in and probably shitloads of sugar. But it is and pine nuts, and it is absolutely delicious. In fact, if any of our friends from Dubai or Abu Dhabi actually make OMalley, if they could send us a recipe, that would be absolutely phenomenal, because it is one of the best desserts ever.
Wow, I've never even seen that, and I've been to the UAE like 4 times.
Usually, like if you go to if you're in Dubai and you go to like one of the big buffets and stuff, you go to the Arabic sections, like the Arabic desserts. They usually have like baklava, and they'll usually have OMalley, and it comes with that. You can put that sort of vanilla creamy sauce on the side with it. Oh, it's unbelievable.
Nice. I often don't even go to dessert aisles because it's usually everything's just full of dairy and then there's fruit, and quite often at the end of the meal, like, I'll get a bit of pineapple because it's nice and cleansing on the palate. I just don't even bother looking because it's just all got dairy in it.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm a dairy and gluten whore when it comes to desserts.
All the gluten, all the dairy, please, thank you.
Actually, yeah, but here's the thing, right? So everyone knows I do have a lot of digestive issues, so gluten and dairy aren't actually a big that much of a trigger for me. Obviously it's volume related. If I'm going to eat gluten and dairy, every single day, then, yes, I find myself with a problem, but I can get away with it. So for example, if I'm going out for dinner and, I fancy a dessert that's got gluten and dairy, and I can get away with that, no problem. However, if my meal has onion, garlic, or any of the FODMAP foods in it, absolutely game over. So you win some, you lose some.
You do. Right. Let's move on to
Right, we did promise we were going to answer some questions today. Although, I was going to say it's Christmas and I'm feeling a bit festive, and therefore my attention span is a little bit like a squirrel on speed. But that's not quite true, because it's 14th of December as we're recording today, and I don't feel festive at all. And it's funny, because usually by now, I usually break up for Christmas, so I do a month of... Obviously, I've been living in Australia, so I usually do a month. So 15th of December to the 15th of January is usually my holiday time. So I'm usually feeling pretty festive by now. Like, I've usually got some form of Christmas decorations up. But this year, I'm working right through Christmas, right up until New Year. And then I'm taking some time out in the New Year. So, no festivities just yet. So let's answer some questions, shall we?
Let's do this.
Okay, so this question is from Vijay. Hi, Ben and Rachel. First of all, just a quick thanks to all of the advice and tips that you and Rachel provide. It's refreshing to come across 2 people that genuinely want to improve lives and not just make a quick wad of cash. If you would have some time, it would be great if you could help resolve the situation I find myself in. First of all, a little bit of background on myself. I used to be extremely large during my childhood, and I'm now 23. When I was 16 or 17, I decided to make a change and an attempt to lose weight. I did this the incorrect way of running, sometimes up to an hour on treadmills, whilst being on a 1,500 calorie a day diet. I lost the weight, approximately 30 kilos, but I also looked stick thin. Fast forward 2 years, I want to add some muscle. I did what every newbie does and jumped straight into the gym without a set plan and not eating enough. This lasted for a while until I seriously got into training and nutrition. I added mass whilst improving upon my nutrition. However, in the back of my mind, I always had the fear of gaining weight. As I was eating more, which was contradictory to what I did what was contradictory to what I did years ago, cut everything in an attempt to lose weight. Earlier this year, I injured my wrist from what I think was incorrectly doing a press-up with a plate on my back. I fractured my lunate bone, affecting the blood supply to it. This is a very rare degenerative condition. MRI showed that I have a negative ulnar variance, which is where the ulna is abnormally shortened compared to the radius, which causes pressure on the lunate bone. I've just had radial shortening surgery to help the progression of the condition, and a consultant has advised me not to put pressure on the wrist. I've asked him whether I can continue weightlifting in the long term, to which he replied, "It is up to you whether you want to take the risk." Immediately after I heard that, it left me feeling dejected and slightly depressed. Why? I thought I'd lose all progress I've made in the past few years. It's been extremely tough in this current state where I've only been able to train the unaffected side and legs. The psychological aspect has been incredibly difficult. I'm currently working with a BTN coach who has given me alternate workouts to do once I'm out of recovery, which involves a cable attachment to wrap around my forearm to still train that limb whilst using cables, etc. Would you have any advice to the long-term effects of weight training in regards to my situation? Should I speak to a sports physio for further research? I don't know that any doctors are generally... I do know that doctors are generally conservative about their advice and potentially do not fully understand the workouts that can be done. And then again, I don't want to cause any long-term damage. Once again, I really do appreciate your time and thanks for any advice given. Kind regards, Vijay.
It's interesting because I've actually talked with the coach that is coaching Vijay about this, because I was at the BTN Marbella retreat at the time and we were talking about it because it was quite an interesting situation. And I think it just goes to show that it's amazing what you can do with the human body. And this has actually been a train of thought, Rachel, that we've had for a couple of weeks on the podcast, where there's so many people that are in a position now where they need to get more critical and really delve deep into the things that they actually want to achieve and where the current energy is going and what the output is. And with this, it's a case that you need to really invest yourself in just literally thinking outside the box. Like, what the BTN coach did is the absolute perfect thing. Like, when the acute pain's gone and it's not too hard to just even move and it feels okay, there is nothing wrong with strapping something round the arm, and instead of the weight attachment being at the wrist, it being at the elbow and still doing exactly the same movements. The only stimulus that you're actually losing out on is the hand and the wrist. And in the grand scheme of things, like metabolically, activation, you're still getting quite a lot. You're still going to get upper arm activation. Let's take the row, for example. Let's just say you attached a strap onto your elbow joint or your upper forearm. You're still going to get upper arm, shoulder, back, through all the scapular muscles, etc. If you could challenge yourself where you actually had more core activation by maybe doing it on one leg or in a certain position. So actually you could modify it to make it even harder. And I think what we can take away, and this is where understanding the science of nutrition and training is really important. We know that to build and progress, you need a progressive overload training program and you need a calorie surplus, or you at least need a calorie surplus once you've gone through that newbie phase of training. You can kind of gain mass without an awful lot of calories. So that yes, we need those two environments to happen. When you can't have those two environments, it's actually really easy to maintain muscle mass. 1, 2, 3 sessions a week. You could even maintain muscle mass with 1 session a week, because all you want to do is keep an anabolic stimulus turned on so that a catabolic stimulus doesn't really have a chance to take hold. So even if you're doing 2 or 3 days a week where you're working with bands, you might be doing a lot more isolated holds, isometric contractions, all that kind of stuff. That is going to be enough to maintain. Now, this is the hard bit mentally. Yes, you're not going to be able to progress as much because you're not going to be in that state where you can train fully, but that's just life. And actually, you've just got to accept that you've got to stand back and progress. Maintain what you're doing. But also for me, this is another opportunity to progress yourself in other areas. Take me as an example. I've stripped my training right back. I'm working with a PT, my business partner Ben, twice a week at the moment, and we're doing loads of like rebalancing. Like my lower abs don't work properly, my hip flexors are too tight, I can't activate my posterior chain properly, I've got a very dominant back. Like if I was injured, let's say my shoulder was injured, the training that I'm doing right now, I could do pretty much all of it with an injured shoulder. So perhaps you can go to a PT or a coach and say, look, I've got this injury, I think it's a perfect time to work on some weaknesses. Let's focus on my core strength, my posterior chain. Like there's loads of things that will give you new focus. So what we can't focus on is what we were currently doing, because that's impossible. We can't currently do that. But what you do need to do is refocus your energy to say, right, I've now identified some other weaknesses, let's focus on that. And that gives you hope and drive to play around with that. Like when I first transitioned onto this new training program, I did find it a little bit difficult because per se, I didn't actually want to regress. Like no one wants to regress. But now I've been doing it 2 or 3 weeks, I'm actually starting to see the progressions of taking a step back and working with a proper S&C coach to actually rebalance myself. So in the future, I can make a lot more progress because my body has much better balance and strength.
Absolutely. I think as well, like training is perfectly imperfect. You know, we all have this idea that everyone trains perfectly, and you know, if you're looking at particularly bodybuilding splits, that you have to do X amount of sets and reps and volume per workout, but everybody's different. I mean, you mentioned it there, like you do have to get creative. So using isometric work, using different things, trying different techniques. And it might be that you spend, 6 weeks with one trainer and then you actually switch and you spend 6 weeks with another trainer. I'm actually, I'm all for sticking with one trainer for a long period of time. However, having said that, in your circumstance, Vijay, like you're going to need to find an experienced trainer, an experienced coach, and somebody who can use their initiative rather than just somebody who does this, I guess the standard bodybuilding stuff per se.
To answer your question about seeing a sports physio, I think when there's been an acute injury, I'll give you an example. I've sprained my ankles quite a lot over the years, and one of the reasons I'm doing this rebalancing stuff is I believe that the ankle sprains that I keep getting are due to imbalances in my lower limb biomechanics and my core strength. So because I've had so many sprained ankles, while my ankles are kind of okay at the moment and they're moving, they've got a lot of scar tissue in them. They've got a lot of trigger points. They don't have full range of movement. I don't have normal flexibility. So in your case, you've had surgery, which has been invasive. That means muscles are going to have tightened up in certain areas. You're going to have a compensatory pattern where you're moving your arm differently to compensate for the kind of pain and immobility. And then there's going to be scar tissue just from the kind of invasive work. So I would definitely at some point go and see a good sports physio, an osteopath, or someone that can actually look at the body, how it's moving, and then potential adhesions and work them out. Because otherwise it will cause further problems in the future. And I was actually talking to someone, my osteopath, about this very recently, and one of his favourite clients to work on is actually very young people, like late adolescents, early teenagers. And the reason why he said this is because so many of the problems that we have today are from problems that we developed in our childhood. So you said, for example, you could be playing sport as a 12-year-old and you sprain your hamstring. Let's just say it's a moderate tear, middle of the hamstring. We ice it, we wait till it's healed, and we carry on again. Now that scar tissue might have developed to a degree that it will change your lower limb biomechanics, and it will create a strain pattern within your lower limb biomechanics. Now, if you don't get that seen to properly, that could permanently alter, even slightly, your lower limb biomechanics. But you couple that with years and years of training, very, very slightly, very incorrectly, that leads to a lot bigger problem. So like the problems I'm going to my osteopath with right now, he's like, well, some of these problems you could have developed at like 14, 18, 22, whatever, but you're now 29, and they're a lot harder for me to fix, whereas it's really cool to work on younger people because you get in there and the fix is usually a lot quicker because the damage is not as bad because it hasn't been ingrained or compounded for a period of time. I mean, Rachel, you must have an opinion on this. You trained in physiotherapy. You must have seen kind of similar cases.
100%. And it's one of those things that, unfortunately, it's like personal trainers. Not all physios are made equal, and the same with chiros and osteos. And I think when you get somebody who's very good, that they can identify the cause of an injury, because unless it's an acute injury, let's just say, for example, you got a contusion on your thigh. So say, for example, you were playing rugby and someone's kneed your thigh, right? You kneed your quad, right? And you got a corpse thigh.
Rachel,
you still there?
Yeah, this is really weird because I have that exact injury as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh my god! I've had it from MMA where I've actually I was kneeing somebody and I got an elbow in my thigh, and it was, I'm not being funny, a corpse thigh is probably one of the most painful experiences I've ever had in my life. So unless it's an acute injury like that where you can properly identify the cause of it, you often have sort of these. Even if it's let's take a hamstring tear as an example, an acute hamstring tear where you might be sprinting, and people will say, well, I was sprinting, that's the cause of the problem. Well, that's not the cause, that's the effect of the problem. So you actually have to look right deep down at biomechanics as to exactly why that hamstring was weak, why it was potentially put into a position where it couldn't hold tension there, and actually why that weakness has occurred in the first place. So, I absolutely agree. And I think it's one of those things where, particularly like these, it might be like a rolled ankle where you don't really think it's a particularly serious injury. You don't get it rehabbed properly. You don't go to the physio. You don't go to chiro, osteo. But it doesn't ever quite go away. And if it does, then the pattern manifests somewhere else in the body. So my advice to Vijay would definitely go to a sports physio on a regular basis, and you're probably going to need somebody with an injury like that and complications like that. You're probably going to be seeing somebody for at least 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, I've been seeing my osteopath now I went originally to the osteopath about my arm, which still is a long way from fixed. It's a problem that I've had with 10 years. I still can't straighten it properly. And we only got so far with the arm, and then he started to look at the rest of my body, and he said, well, let's look at how the rest of the body might be impacting the upper extremity. And, there's so much going on in my physique. We've looked at my lower back, my mid-back, my ankles, the strains in my hamstrings, my hip flexors, my right hip flexors, like a flipping pulled apart cheese string. Like, it's just loads of stuff. And, I think I've been doing this for about 5 months with him now. And there's probably another good 4 months of work that I need to do with him. And I tend to see him on average every 10 days because of our schedules and stuff. But, I'm really committed to it. It's like my arm. Yeah. My arm is still fairly fucked. And there's still a lot I can't do with it. But after 10 years, I'm still committed to finding a way that I'm going to fix it.
Absolutely. And it's an ongoing thing. And it's, and I think it does come down to, even if you can see somebody once a month, you're doing yourself a massive favour.
I think it's very hard for a lot of people to generally go back and look at their weaknesses, because there'll be a point in time where your weakness will hold you back. Yeah. And this is in every area of life, your body, your nutrition, your stress, if you're in business and you're self-employed, whether you're employed. Like, there's so many environments where you've got to actually take stock and go back, reassess, rebuild, so you can go to the future. Yeah. And I think this is where I want people to be so critical thinking minded, is that sometimes it does take a really brave person to do it. And in training, it's never going to be improvement. With nutrition and your health, it's never going to be improvement. The same with your job. You know, there's going to be times where you're going to have to be strong, suck it up and go, do you know what? For the next 3, 4, 6 months, I'm going to have to regress myself. Like my training at the moment, I was doing deadlifts today with 60 kilo. My one-arm deadlift is 190, but it's been stuck at 190 for about 5 years. Why is that? Because I'm not using my hamstrings properly. I'm not using my core properly. There's so many things that aren't happening, and I can't progress with my strength when, you know, if we look at periodized models and what the body's capable of and my muscle mass, that kind of stuff, I should be able to lift way beyond 190 with a good training program over time. Like, don't get me wrong, a fair amount of time. But I'm not. I'm really stuck, and it's because I've got to go right back. And do you know what? I might be in this right back stage for a good kind of 6 months before I can really build on it. And to contextualize all this, I just had to realign my focus. I just said, right, now this is about me doing this, about something else. And it's just how you package it in your mind to mentally get yourself around the stuff that actually you need to do and not just the stuff you want to do. Like, I'll tell you what, one of the big things I miss right now is just going into the gym and just doing lots of work. Having a good pump, like, you know, a good upper body day where you do loads of stuff, shoulders, back, arms, like, just to feel really good and do a lot of hard work, get a really good sweat on. Do you know what? I miss that. And at the moment, I can only really do that every 10 to 14 days with my schedule, stress, training load, that kind of stuff. But I'm committed to the other stuff because it is way more important for my body.
Do you know what? I'm sitting here smiling because I'm thinking, like, you know what? You're just literally taking the words out of my mouth. Like, literally. Exactly the same thing is happening to me. And I had this conversation with a coach at my gym, actually, the other day. So we basically put it down to old age. So obviously, like, coming into... So I was speaking with trainer. He is a physique model. He's got a fantastic physique on him. But he's also had a fair few injuries along the way. Now... he's a trainer here in London, and he has basically said that he just can't train the way that he used to, and neither can I. I used to be able to kind of go into the gym, pick up heavy weights, smash things around, and I just can't do that anymore. And my biggest wake-up call for me, and I've spoken about this on the podcast several times because it is a thorn in my side still, although I'm trying, I'm slowly coming to accept that things have to change, and that was my hamstring tear last year. So I tore my hamstring and my adductor on my left side really bad in March 2014, and it's still a problem. And so, like you, since I moved back to the UK, I've got myself a trainer here, and I'm doing very remedial stuff. In fact, I'm going to start making some more videos about it and posting it online. And I know, like, I'll have a heap of questions about it, but I'm doing things like partial rep lunges to try and activate my glutes in a certain range. I'm doing, a lot of slide, like, work on the slide boards. My adductors are very, very weak. So I'm doing some pretty remedial, pretty boring training. And I said to my coach, I'm desperate to just have a party pump. I'm desperate to just get in the gym. And in fact, it did get the better of me on Saturday. I just went into the gym. I had 2 double espressos before I trained, and I just went in there and I just hit it hard. And I came out and I was like, oh yeah, I feel really good now. But it was short-lived because I know that I'm actually not progressing doing anything like that. So, I've come a long way since August, since I've been training this way. But like you, Ben, I've really had to refocus my energy on what it is that I want and really have a very clear goal. And I set myself, a good 6 to 8 months of remedial work. Now, you think you're doing a bad job, deadlifting with 60 kilos. I'm right back. I've regressed right back to sort of 40 kilo deadlifts. And, that's with a trap bar. and I'm doing it within, yes, I do it with tempo, but for me, I have to work within a pain-free range, because I'm trying to push my hamstring to the point where it's just not working. It shuts down. It's pain inhibition. So, yeah, it happens to the best of us. Particularly when you hit over 30, I think you really have to take a good, hard look at your training and really establish like what is going to take you long term in training, not just for the short term.
It's really interesting now. I've been doing this stuff with the coach as well, because we've been working and looking at the posterior chain so much. I've had a bit of a kind of a re-fascination about the human body, and I'm thinking and look at the human body even more. And because Facebook videos of people training go up online all the time, and I'm now looking at people's deadlifts and squats and snatches and stuff when I look at these kind of training videos and thinking, God, like no one else even engages so much of what I'm trying to do right now. And I do find it fascinating because, and don't get me wrong, part of this problem is that not everyone can pay for coaching, right? We watch a deadlift online, you're like, right, I'm going to start doing deadlifts in the gym. So you start doing deadlifts in the gym. And, you just do it to how your body wants to move and how you feel strongest. And quite often you can use incorrect muscle groups because that just feels like the right thing to do because that's where you're strongest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I spent years rowing into my traps. I've got massive traps and rubbish subscapular muscles for years, but because that felt like the strongest plane of movement. And when I was young, I didn't have the money to sort of run up to a personal trainer and say, oh, can you teach me every move possible to make sure that I activate everything and do the right thing? But even with experienced people and people that seem to get coaching and stuff, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. They don't really seem to be doing that either.
No, they're not, and that's where it does take a skilled coach, and this is where I firmly believe that there's a difference between, not all personal trainers are made the same. You have your personal trainer that's just come straight out of school, and then you have your personal trainer that's been in the industry a very long time, and there is a distinct difference between the two. And the truth is, you get what you pay for.
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
So
now, I've just had a little bit of a problem. I've got my notes here, and I've just dropped my top page behind the radiator. So can you just hold the line for all of 10 seconds so I can retrieve it, and then we can get on to our next question.
Well, it doesn't matter actually, Rachel, because I'm going to end the podcast there, and I'm going to save the other 3 questions we've got for the next show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to dig it out behind the radiator then.
And the reason why you go carry on digging, and I'll wrap up for you.
Okay.
The reason why I want to do this is because I believe that today's show has kind of been wrapped up with how I want to kind of wrap it up, really. There's so much that we do as individuals that I still believe so many people are not being reflective enough on. Like, I don't want people to get 80, 90% there. Let's start getting 100% there. And it's, I'm 10 years into fitness now. Been training a long time, eating the right thing a long time, been working on my mindset. I've been doing so much, and I'm still working on so much myself. There's a lot I'm investing in myself mentally all the time. Like, how am I packaging things in my head? What do I want to achieve? Why am I doing that? Why do that action above this action? And don't get me wrong, I'm not over-analysing everything, but I'm being analytical enough to progress and do the things that I want and need to do. And I'm doing the same with my training. I'm not doing the same with my nutrition so much because it's an area of my lifestyle that I'm very, very happy with. I believe my nutrition is very much in a good place. But, I'm always coming back to myself and saying, am I being honest with myself? Am I being honest with my goals? Why am I doing these actions? Are the actions leading to my goals? If not, let's rewrite them. I'm doing it with my training. I'm doing it with so many areas of my life. So, we've got 2016 coming up, and I know any time is a good time to start, but, sometimes a fresh new year can be a good start for people to kind of re-reflect. There'll be loads of people that will be taking Christmas off, starting a new training plan, starting X, Y, and Z after Christmas. Well, focus yourself. Is what you're going to do in 2016 conducive to what you really, really want to achieve on a selfish level? And if it's not, let's rethink and let's get a proper plan together.
Well, I've got my piece of paper now, so I can return to say goodbye.
Right, me and Rachel will see you on the next show. As ever, look, if you've enjoyed this show, just share it with someone. Tag them into the post if you think it would be relevant to them. Hit retweet on Twitter if you see it. Hit like on Facebook. What's happening in the social media world is these days, if people don't appreciate content that's coming out, for example, when a Facebook post goes online, the amount of time that stays in the news feed is a lot of the time dictated by the amount of interaction it gets within the first 15 minutes it goes up online. So you actually, hitting like on our Facebook post for the podcast and things like that actually helps more people discover it. Like that little like button actually goes an awful long way to the discovery of new people finding our show. And, we can't help more people without your support. As ever, you can find Rachel as the Athletic Fox all over the internet, and you can find myself as Ben Coomber all over the internet. So that's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we will see you next time. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 167. So it's about time we got a guest that's previously been on the show and dropped some really, really cool information.